In this video, I want to build off of what we talked about in the last video about giant steps. Previously, all we really talked about was how to simplify this progression into the 3 keys of giant steps, because giant steps, it's only 3 keys. So thinking about how to start off learning how to improvise on this by just really thinking about those 3 key centers, mastering those, and being able to navigate the chord progression in the most simple way possible, which is great. I mean, there's like infinite possibilities. You can play great solos using just that. But let's build off of that a little bit. So, how do we take our improvising to the next level in addition to just playing in the right keys at the right time? So, for example, here we have um, we have we have 4 beats of G, but it's a 5-1. It's not quite as simple as just 4 beats of G, although you could think of it that way. We have a 5-1. 5-1 are different, so you can treat them differently, the 5 versus the 1. And same here, we have a 5-1 in E flat, and then a 2-5-1 in G. So there are so many ways that we can take this to the next level and start thinking about some of the individual chords within each of those keys. And that's what I want to focus on today. But I can't tell you every possibility. I'm just going to name a few of my favorites. So these are a few of my favorite ways to navigate the chords in giant steps, kind of what I'm thinking of as level 2 giant steps, where we're not just playing in the right key at the right time, we're addressing some of the individual chords within each key. And these are just a few of my favorite ways to do that. So method number 1 is using the 4 note of the scale. This is like the simplest way I think that you could address a 5-1 or a 2-5-1. So let's take this 2-5-1. This is backwards for me as I'm doing this, so it's an extra challenge. So we've got a 2-5-1 in E flat. So one way you can address this 2-5-1, think of this 5 chord as its own chord, is by utilizing the 4th note in the scale, which is A flat in this case. So what does that sound like? So we have a 2-5-1, 2-5-1 in E flat. So instead of just playing E flat that whole time, think about that 4 note of the scale. That 4 note of the scale, it's really jarring over the 1 chord, but it's unresolved, but it's actually a guide tone. It's the 7th of that 5 chord. So if you think about playing that 4 note of the scale over the 5 chord, and it sounds good over the 2 as well. So if you think about just resolving 4 to 3, 4 to 3, that's like the simplest thing you could do. Just like something like that. And now, in a very simple way, just you're still using the notes in E flat, but you're thinking about that 4 note specifically. Think about that 4 note over the 5, over really the 2 and the 5, and then think about that 3 note of the scale over the 1 chord. Think about resolving 4 to 3. So that's the simplest, easy way that you can really address a 2-5-1 or a 5-1. And another one that I really like is playing the sharp 5 note of the scale. So we have 2, 5, 1, and this is just an example. There's 2 5s, 5 ones and 2 5 ones all over this progression. So anything that I talk about here, you can use in anywhere in the form pretty much. So another option would be, so that's what that sounds like when I say the sharp 5 note of the scale. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So what is that? What am I doing there? You could think of that as being the flat 9 of the dominant 7 chord. So on this 7 chord, you don't just have to think of it using, the 1, 3, 5, 7, and, the 9, 11, sharp 11, 13. You can put flat 13, flat 9 on there. You can use pretty much any extension that you want over these dominant 7 chords. So a flat 9 really, it's just one way you can really draw it out. You can really draw out this 5 chord by playing a 5-9, putting a flat 9, putting a flat 9 on this chord, and then potentially resolving it. So what does that sound like? So that's my second favorite thing to do, is using that sharp 5 note of the scale. Or you could think of it as playing a flat 9 on the 5 chord. That's my second favorite thing to do. Another thing that you can do is you can play the sharp 4 note on the 1 chord. So for example, let's stick with this example here, because we have a full 2, 5, and then a full 1. So 2, 5, 1. So on the 2 and on the 5, F minor to B flat 7, the A natural is it's really not a note that you're going to be playing, but you can absolutely play an A natural over that 1 chord, over that E flat major. It sounds really nice. So if you are just playing like E flat, E flat, E flat, major, E flat major, yeah, that sounds really nice too. So that's just a way you can actually treat the 1 chord as its own individual entity, is by playing that sharp 11, because that sharp 11 is not really going to sound good over a 5 or a 2-5 preceding it. So that really is a way you can draw out the 1 chord in a 5-1 or 2-5-1 and make that chord shine a little bit more, is with the sharp 11. The last thing I'll talk about is using altered scales. So let's go back to our 2-5-1. So this is a 2-5-1 to E flat, and again, 2-5-1 in G, 2-5-1 in B. So you can use this same technique over any of these using altered scales. That's just a nice way to make the 5 and even the 2-5 a little bit more dissonant. So what is that? So I'm over the B flat 7 chord, I'm playing a B flat altered scale. Now you can stretch it out. You can start the altered scale a little bit earlier, and you can play it a little bit later after this chord already hits. It doesn't have to line up exactly, and you can resolve like partway through this measure if you want. But the idea is, it's like tension and release. You're playing something very dissonant over the 2-5, and then you're playing something nice and consonant when you resolve to the 1. So you have a little bit more time to think about playing altered scales in the second half of the form, because the second half of the form, the chords move a little bit more slowly. We have 2 full bars of E flat, 2 full bars of G, 2 full bars of B, 2 full bars of E flat. And over those 2-5s, you can play, so you can do a D altered scale here, you can do an F sharp altered scale here, you can do a B flat altered scale here. You can do all of those things to draw it out, to draw out those 2-5s and separate the 5 sound from the 1 sound. And so these are all just different ways that you can, again, just go from the next level. So before we were just thinking about playing in the right key at the right place, and now we're thinking about treating some of these chords individually. So these are just, I guess, 4 different techniques that you can use. So again, to recap, resolving 4-3 on a 5-1, playing a flat 9 note on a 5 chord, which is sort of like playing a flat 5 note in the scale, and playing sharp 11s on the 1 chords, and playing altered scales on the 5 chords. Those are all some options, and there are many more things you can do, but those are just a few of my favorite ways to kind of take your improvising to the next level. And so now I'm just going to demonstrate some of those different sounds.